Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series with me, your host, Guile. We're taking a little bit of a break from the Rise of the Immortals trophy as we've finished the group stages now and moved on to the knockout stage of the tournament. So those who are lucky enough to qualify are busy practicing and laddering, and to that end, we have one of them here in a ladder match. It is in the blue corner, BlackDeath. He's going Aeon. Of course, he is one half of Team Deathly's Rage, his teammate, of course, being Crazed Chariot, and they have done very well. They've managed to qualify first in Group 1, so they will get a slightly easier ride. Of course, it's kind of a misnomer because they're facing the Spider Pigs, who are in the losers bracket of Group 3, I guess it is, I think. That's, of course, Voodoo and Kircher. So not exactly an easy run, but that's just the nature of the tournament. It's produced some very unorthodox results because it's operating with all kinds of different parameters that the pros aren't used to. So anyway, he's getting some practicing in on the ladder, and his team, or his opponent I should say, today is going to be Captain Claugus. Done a few casts with this guys, and despite the fact that there is a disparity between the global ladder rankings between these two guys, this guy is no fool when it comes to FA, so don't expect this to be an easy match for BlackDeath at all. And he's going red Cybran down here at the bottom right. Loving the Cybran love, not seeing enough of them lately. Nice to see a little bit of variation in the races, not just an all-FIM party. You see Claugus going pretty heavy land spam, not seeing any air factories in that setup, but conversely, BlackDeath has nestled an air factory. He's gone second, and he's nestled that up against a hydrocarbon to get that little bonus. Looks like he's working on a bomber. Indeed he is, so he's going to get some early harassment in, try and pick up some engineer kills from Claugus, try and slow him up a little bit. Just have to see how he gets on. Of course, the map is Desert Arena. Lots of mass are strewn about the place in reclaimable rocks, but also in mass points, so map control not going to be as important as in other maps. It's going to potentially offer some slightly unusual results. We see now this bomber coming in. He's going to go straight after this engineer, manages to take it out as well as the radar that it was just about to complete, and you see that knocks off all of those factories he had queued up. Got to redo it. Not going to get a third pass in, I don't think. Gets shot down by a very hastily constructed anti-air turret from Claugus. Indeed, the second bomb goes straight down with no kills whatsoever. Meanwhile, cheeky Aurora and a Spirit, the land scout for Aeon, coming in around the side. A little bit of Mantis spam pushed out on the left for Claugus. He's trying to get a little bit of early map control. So Aurora is forced to retreat slightly. Got a few interceptors out now for BlackDeath, but they're a little bit unnecessary, being as there isn't a single air factory out for Claugus, although of course it's a little bit early for BlackDeath to know that with any certainty. And the two ACUs now nestling up against one another very closely indeed. Of course, not going to have a great idea that they're there. You can imagine Claugus would expect these mass points to be taken, judging by the proximity to BlackDeath's spawn location. And BlackDeath can see the footprint of one of the factories, so he knows that there's stuff under construction now very near him. Needs to get on it though, otherwise could lose pretty significant field position. And indeed he has started work with some defenses. Going to start with the radar first, which is the right call. Takes no time to build. It's going to give him the coverage that he needs to prioritize targets, and he's going to start a point defense nice far forward. And Claugus, despite having two factories up and running and another one on the way, he's got a few Mantis out, but I think that's going to be enough. He needs to start getting some artillery out to deal with this point defense, and indeed he hasn't done so. His attention is probably elsewhere, but that's going to be very unfortunate for him. Looks like another point defense is going to get up and running with two of them. I don't see any way for Claugus to hold on to this position now. He's going to have to yield. His ACU is going to be sputtering out all kinds of warnings.
Under attack.
There it goes. He's going to have to yield, so that is very unfortunate. What with BlackDeath's comm sitting here as well, he's never going to be able to hold on to this forward factory, so there's a lot of time, energy and mass that's gone into pushing this far forward. I applaud the idea. It wants to close off as much as of the map as soon as possible. It's always a risky scenario when you're coming up against this level of play, which he inevitably is in the form of BlackDeath. Loses a hydrocarbon in the south and one of the mass points, but Claugus trying to secure it now, getting some T1 PD up. You can see the location that Claugus has retreated his comm to. He's trying to get some PD up here as well. Wants to secure this little forward section. Obviously really important, these groups of 4 places, these little spawn locations that it would be in a 6-player free-for-all, or sorry, an 8-player free-for-all, or a 4v4. But BlackDeath pushing quite hard now, working on that factory that was built earlier by Claugus. A little bit of Aurora span coming through as well. He's also following it up with his comm. Needs some fervors, which he's got. So that point defense isn't going to last too long. And indeed, it goes down. And a few engineers going to fall as well. So lightly defended at this side. And it is because obviously he's slightly behind on map control, slightly behind on mass. And he has been upgrading. So we are having hoplites on the field. Let's take a look. And interestingly, BlackDeath has upgraded as well, but he's gone air, so it's a slight tech mismatch between the two sides. Let's see how that works out. This could be very interesting indeed. And he's working on T2 power, so you'd imagine he's going to get on some T2 air very soon. Could be going for a mercy snipe. It's always something you've got to watch out with Aeon. It's partly why they're so hated, especially on small maps. Nothing quite so infuriating when you're lining up for an interesting game and then your comm goes pop and you can't really do anything about it. But that little northern assault has been seen off. Those 4 mass points did go down though. And now BlackDeath is pushing on the south, wisely anticipating that it's going to be relatively lightly defended considering the amount of force that has pushed north. These fervors allowing them just to stay out of range or significant range of this point defense, taking down a couple of mass points and that PD. August taking his time trying to amass a decent number of troops. He's got some hoplites in the mix now. And indeed there are gunships being spammed out now for BlackDeath, so that could be a an attempt at a snipe, or it could just be a way to deal with the upgraded tech. He's going to expect that there's not going to be a lot that can deal with it. There are one or two bangers being produced for Claugus, wisely anticipating any air threat as something he needs to take seriously, being as he hasn't got an air facility of his own up and running. Meanwhile, a little run-by happening down here from BlackDeath with these Auroras, trying to get into the back of the base, do as much damage to production and power as possible. Going to take out a few power plants, but I don't think it's going to cause any great trouble. Although at the top of the map, we've got some success happening from these hoplites, little band of Mantis, getting right to the top. Looks like BlackDeath wanting to hide these Spectres from him as long as possible, so he can't do anything about it, but he is going to, he knows they've been seen now, so he's going to attack straight with them. And Claugus, wisely anticipating the air threat ahead of time, has got some anti-air turrets up and one. They're only T1, but they should be enough to protect the comm, even though he's only around the 7,000 HP mark. And indeed, BlackDeath doesn't attempt the snipe, he's just going to go after the resourcing options, and that's very nice anticipation from Claugus. You've got to understand, he's got no air factory, so he couldn't have done any kind of air scouting. He wouldn't have known that that was the threat he needs to watch out for, but he just had a sense, as you get with these kind of games once you've played them long enough. So despite losing again this northern mass point, he does manage to keep his commander out of too much difficulty, which he could have been in had he not produced those air turrets. You can imagine those, however many it was, like 8 or so Spectres, 8 or 9 Spectres, working on those mass points, not seeing any threat here, seeing a low commander, they would have just gone straight for him. So very nicely done from Claugus, limiting the damage, but he's lost all the mass points down here again and up here. If you take a look at the economies, Claugus is sitting on, wait for the reclaims to drop down, drop down to 14 there, so he's absolutely woeful economy, whereas BlackDeath is sitting on comfortably by comparison the 48 mass mark. Neither guy's getting to do any upgrades on their mass whatsoever. Looks like BlackDeath has managed to get T2 on his comm. He's got some Oblivion turrets up and running, so he's really trying to secure any possible entrance. Doesn't want any run-bys happening with hoplites again after that initial attack. Wants to secure it as best he can. Meanwhile, another little push happening at just the right time, taking out a couple of engineers that were working on his mass points. So despite the fact that BlackDeath seems to be throwing away whole groups of Auroras and Fervs every time, he sees them as expendable, doesn't need to worry about it too much as long as he's preventing Claugus from getting ahead, getting back on any kind of even footing economically wise. So it's a pretty smart play from BlackDeath, very nicely done indeed. Meanwhile, Relief of the Land coming to the rescue for mass extractor. That might be out of range. Might just be shooting at all sections and things. Not entirely sure. We'll have a look at what BlackDeath can see. So yeah, just going after that mass point, but relief of the land getting in the way. Now another little run by attempted. Fervors and Auroras have done their job again on this little southern section, just seeing if they can get into the edge of the base. A huge quantity of inties, really unnecessary. I mean, he's got to know that, or maybe he was unsure that there hasn't been any threat from the air. Indeed, an air factory only just getting built now for Claugus. So really a huge waste of mass and energy in the form of inties still being produced. But I know it's always important to be prepared, but just not useful for BlackDeath whatsoever. And he's thrown, not only that, I mean, he's thrown most of them away by flying them over these bangers. So what did look like 20 or 30 inties just been thrown in the bin. It's giving them some scouting information, I guess. But of course there is an air factory up and running now, so I suppose Claugus could always switch. But he's not going to have the economy to do so, get any kind of tech. He's had his power assassinated a few times. There were a lot more T1 power and plants running. He's got some going up at the back here. But power, of course, being the key implement that you need when you're getting any kind of air strat going. BlackDeath working on a little point-to-point defense creep now, with some pretty decent effects. Still his mass point unscathed. Why that is, he's managed to do that. You can see it. All sections, just the relief of the land getting in the way there. You can see that T1 PD now just getting through past the wall sections as that wall section goes down. And that won't last very long at all. Meanwhile, Captain Claugus's comm is helping defend that southern western section. You can see it looks like he's actually got the upgrade on his weapon, so that's going to make him pretty effective on this side, and that's what he needs to do. He needs to secure at least one of these sections, just get some mass, get some economy up and running. He just hasn't been able to this whole game. Starting to see a nice number of hoplites up and running now for Claugus. However, BlackDeath has made the transition to Tech 2 land, so that is going to be interesting. The advantage that Claugus had on the tech mismatch, still only T2 engineers being produced from the T2 air factory, so BlackDeath hasn't managed to make any use of that factory really, except for that one little assassination. I think he's probably hoping to force Claugus into a more heavy defensive strat against the air. I mean, he's building a second air factory. I guess he just wants to have the options, but he hasn't invested seriously in it. He's made quite a pretty decent judge of what he needs to be doing in terms of strategy. Despite not being able to execute it that well, he's been on the back foot most of this game. His instincts have been pretty good about what he needs to be focusing on. He hasn't wasted too much time and energy. You can see a nice little overcharge coupled with the gun upgrade on that T1 PD. Brings it down pretty quickly. And again, more inties just being used as scouting tools. BlackDeath really not too concerned about wasting a little bit of mass here and there. And now we've got a lot of T2 missile launchers. The Vipers out for Claugus, which is the right maneuver in this case. Needs to do something about these Oblivion turrets if he's going to have any hope of securing this northern section, this northern resourcing point, which he needs more than anything. So he's going to get in there, he's going to outrange those point defense turrets, take out the T1s first and then move on to the Oblivions. And definitely the right maneuver. But there's a whole second bank of turrets and more down here, so BlackDeath has actually pushed quite a lot of energy, mass and energy, into static defenses, which is quite unusual. Usually at this level of play you don't see quite so much of it, especially on such an open map where there's no chokeholds, but I think the plan is to try and retain as much map control as he could get while he upgrades to T3, which he's done. He's now working on Harbingers, but it looks like we're also getting a T3 upgrade for Claugus. He's a little bit behind the curve, but that's to be expected when you're running that much of a deficit against your opponent on economy. Now Claugus just trying to get a little bit of vengeance for the amount of work that BlackDeath has been putting on his own resourcing operations by taking out some mass points down here. That's a pretty serious push that he's actually implementing on this little bank of Oblivion turrets, but that's a lot of Oblivion turrets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Oblivion turrets, an equal or excessive number of T1 PD as well, so August needs to be careful here, but he's doing some very nice job. Doesn't seem like he's got any kind of T1. He's got the odd reducer in there, the T1 artillery for Cybran giving some extra damage, but he's mainly doing the work with hoplites, and this is why you've got to favour in general mobile armies over static defences, especially on a wide open map. But I think the saving grace will be these two Harbingers that BlackDeath has managed to get out nice and early. It looks like a really impressive force that Claugus has here, but I don't think they're going to get too far. I'd like to see him focusing on the engineers that are surrounding this T3 factory, try and hamper production as much as possible. He needs to prevent as many Harbingers from being released from the factory as possible, but he's just going to run out of troops. I don't think he's going to be able to. He has managed to finish now the T3 upgrade on his own factory, so we're seeing some bricks in production. Indeed, the first one, it looks like the first one is rolling off production now, and he's done a pretty solid job of thinning out these Oblivion turrets. There is now some TMD up for BlackDeath, although it immediately goes down to excessive fire. BlackDeath's been getting a few up down here as well, so of course he can't just push straight on up. He's got to keep employing the same tactics if he's got any hope of pushing that back. But of course, now seeing quite a lot of Harbies out for BlackDeath, so there's a real back and forth battle at this moment. To Claugus's credit, how he's managed to hold on, it's been very impressive. But then these little attacks, every time we've come in with BlackDeath, throwing all those Auroras away, despite the fact he's been denying his mass points, he's been dumping a huge amount of mass on the doorstep of BlackDeath, which has allowed him to stay in this, I think. If I had the Gaz UI mod, which I don't, I keep saying I'm going to get it, but I don't get around to it, we'd be able to see what the two guys have reclaimed. I suspect BlackDeath's probably not going to be anywhere near, having reclaimed anywhere near the amount of mass that Claugus has done. It's the only way I can really foresee him managing to stay in this. And he's just, again, trying to secure this northern section. He's got the 4 mass points up and running again, and a T1 row of T1 PD. But I don't think he's going to get enough done in time, especially not with Harbingers in the mix amongst these Auroras. I think this is going to be another loss. He's got very little that he can do to defend. He's going to lose a bunch of engineers as well, which he really can't afford to do, considering of how much they've been sustaining him. There are 1 or 2 bricks out on the field, but they're over on this side, or at least 1 brick. There's going to be another one, I imagine, rolling off production. Indeed there is. There he goes. But he's got 2 actually up here. Excuse me. He's got 2 bricks out, so this little northern band is either going to have to retreat or suicide, so he's going to elect to retreat. Does manage to save that Harbinger on about 2,000 HP. Some real hero work going on from Claugus's comm. Trying to thin out the masses. He's sitting on 57 kills. Nicely done there. But you just look at the kind of map control that's again swung into BlackDeath's favour, and he's starting to amass these very grisly looking platoons of units. Claugus having to retreat slightly with his comm. You've got to feel like he's probably going to lose this mass section again, and he's got a T2 mass point in there. Ouch. That is going to be painful. Really can't afford to be losing that. Very painful indeed. It's interesting. I don't know why you would have picked that for an upgrade. Why not one of your base ones? So I think that is a little bit of a mistake there from Claugus. You think how many times he's lost these mass points. It can only be a matter of time, you suspect, before he loses it again. And shield gens now in the mix for BlackDeath. This is not looking good for Claugus. He has managed to sneak a couple of bricks up past the defenses of BlackDeath. He can hang a Louis right now and try and direct them towards the base. He might be able to get something done. Only 1 T1 point defense up here. But BlackDeath promptly redirecting his forces so that you can imagine those 2 bricks aren't going to get too far. Meanwhile, this other band of troops, complete with shield gens, furthers, auroras and harbingers, just moving in for the kill now. A couple of bricks at home to defend and some lines of T1 point defense. I think they're going to do too much. And he's binned a lot of mass on a T2 upgrade and is producing Corsairs now, the fighter bombers for Cybran. Not sure that's going to help. Wants to try and get something. He knows he's kind of outgunned. Wants to get something that some kind of control back. He doesn't feel like he can do it on the land, but he's lost 2 factories. Another one going to go down here, and he's going to lose. If he's not careful, he's going to lose that T3 factory as it goes down to under 1,000 hit points, and there it goes, and that is critical for Claugus. Low on economy as he is, it's hard to get those bricks out, but you certainly can't do it when you haven't got a factory that can produce them. And that, I think, is the final nail in the coffin for Claugus. I don't see any way back from him now. It's just a question of how long he can hold out. Corsair up and running. Going to get a few bombs off. But you can think if BlackDeath wanted to get air control back, he could do so at any point. But I just don't think he needs to. There is far too much on the field. Too much damage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 factories down. One of which was a T3. Although he's got a few bricks out on the field and in the mix. Looks like there's a far superior number of harbingers, and they're just increasing all the time. Still that T2 air factory just producing T2 engineers, so BlackDeath not phased by this mini tech switch of Claugus at all. Of course he doesn't need to be. See that T2 mass point going to go down. It's academic, really. This doesn't really matter. He's lost 2 in his base at the same time anyway, so unless it had been one of these, it wouldn't have helped him that much. But the amount that he's lost now, and Claugus and these last 2 bricks, Claugus now withdrawing into his base with his ACU. So much further fire. The T1 artillery for the Aeon coming down now on Claugus. Absolutely brutal. Getting his last 2 bricks into the action. Nice little rank up there as he passes 75 kills. But all that he's got left now, see any way he's going to be able to fend off this amount of troops. I don't think he can overcharge anymore. I don't think he's got any storage left. As he passes below 500 HP, boom! And Claugus is defeated, subjugated. So very well done. But very well done to him for holding out for that period of time. That's some nice management, and he did show some exceptional anticipatory skills, if that's even a word. Exceptional anticipation, I should say, of the maneuvers that BlackDeath were going to play and when. So commiserations to him, but well fought, my friend. You did yourself proud. And well done to BlackDeath. Hope you're finding this useful. Good luck in your future game versus Voodoo and Kircher. Of course, I'm not picking sides, but me and my fellow casters will bring that and other games to you as and when they happened. But for now, this is me, Guile, signing off.